8.4%. But if you look at the biggest component of manufacturing, the index of 8 core industries, that grew only by 2.9%. So where are these numbers coming from? Please ask these questions in the next few days when you're confronted with the government's data. Of course, you may all be asking this question as well. If the economy is doing so well, why is the rupee collapsing? We have seen the rupee being the worst performing currency in Asia against the dollar in the last 1 year. And this month itself, you have seen that the rupee is sprinting. It has fallen to by the end of the year, it had fallen to 91. And now, before this month ends, it has sprinted to 92. Is this the sign of a strong economy if the currency is weakening every day? If the economy is growing at this pace, you should see a flood of investments coming into India. Instead, you see the reverse happening. Foreign direct investment, net investment is the other way around, is negative. And even Indians are preferring to put their money overseas. Every year, under Modi Sarkar, 4,000 to 5,000 high net worth individuals, millionaires, are fleeing the country. What do they know that everyone else doesn't? Further, if the economy is doing so well, where are the jobs? If you look between 2017-18 and 2023-24, the share of workers in manufacturing fell from 12.1% to 11.4%. In services, came down from 31.1% to 29.7%. We will be giving you all these details and a copy of the report, so bear with me as I keep moving forward. The first question that should strike you is, what happened to Make in India? Why is manufacturing employment dropping if Make in India is any kind of a success? Where are the jobs being created? In agriculture. The share has gone up from 44.1% to 40%. As any economist will tell you, the standard trajectory of development is from farm. In India, we are seeing the opposite. Agriculture, the growth rate is only about 16%, and more population is now living off agriculture. It is going to be less productive and underemployed, and this is hardly the direction we want India to move forward with. Whatever jobs are being created in the low-value, informal sectors, particularly in the gig economy, and we know from what happened around New Year's that there is tremendous precarity and insecurity in terms of gig jobs. Further, even if you had a job, 40% of those with salaries have no contracts or paid leave or social security. Hardly a Goldilocks economy. Further, inequality is worsening. We've seen this from the time of the COVID recovery. We've essentially seen a K-shaped recovery. Those who are doing well are doing spectacularly well. That's the K-shape, the top arm of the K. And those, the rest of Indians, the vast majority, are sliding down every year. The government is in denial about this. If you look at this, the inequality, the top 10% of Indians capture 58% of national income. The bottom 50% get 15% of income. The top 10% own 65% of India's wealth. The bottom half own 6.4%. And our friends, the crony capitalists, the top 1% of India owns 40% of India's wealth. That is the level of inequality. 4 out of 5 Indians live off less than 200 rupees per day. 1/3 of Indians on less than 100 rupees per day. And net financial savings in households is at a decade low of 5.2%, and household debt has gone up sharply. cumulatively, when it comes to direct taxes, people, you and me, are paying more direct taxes than corporates put together. So that is the reality of this government and the inequality that is flourishing under this government. Now, you recall this statement of the Prime Minister when the discussion about the caste survey came up. He said the four biggest castes for me are the poor, youth, women, and farmers. What has he done for them? For the youth, the first question is, where are the jobs? Between April to September 2025, youth labor force participation fell from 42% to 41.3%. What does this mean? If people are not in the labor force, it means that they are too discouraged. They've stopped even looking for work. That is the basic problem and plight of India's youth. Youth employment has come down from 35.8% to 35.2%. Unemployment has grown to 15%, and in urban areas, youth unemployment is 18.4%. Nearly 1 in 5 youth is unemployed in urban India. There was this idea that the Congress party had floated in our manifesto for the 2024 election about creating apprenticeships. And this government took that idea and set up something called the Pradhan Mantri Internship Scheme. It talked to all the leading corporates and announced that it was going to create lakhs of internships. However, the reality is that only 2,066 people have completed their internships, and out of those, only 95 have got job offers. Every year, about 2 crore youth enter the workforce, 95 get job offers. Okay? You know, the India Skills Report also continues to point out that only 1 in 2 graduates is actually employable, and there was supposed to be the Pradhan Mantri Kaushal Vikas Yojana, which is supposed to skill our youth and give them the capabilities to enter the workforce. Unfortunately, you should look at the CAG report on the functioning of the PMKVY, and it has turned out to be a spectacular failure. As if corporate India hasn't been doing well and cannot create jobs. The 2025 economic survey showed that corporate profits grew 22.3%. In fact, if you had a salary, lower than 5 years earlier. So essentially, people, even if they had jobs, are facing a much worse situation. What about the poor? What about farmers? 2 more of the Prime Minister's priorities. Well, if they are getting the kind of priority, if this is the priority that the Prime Minister gives them, they would be much better off not even being drawn to his attention. We saw in the last session of Parliament in the winter that essentially the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme was scrapped. Employment, that empowering social safety net had established. Look at this figure behind me, which came to the rescue of this government after COVID when people were back in their villages and trying to survive. This is the program that provided the safety net. Now the government has abolished it. It is going to pass on more of the burden to the states. And I can predict here, given the fiscal situation of the states, that this is as good as killing any program aimed at providing a social safety net for the poor farmers in rural India. Essentially, this is not new. They have been starving Manrega of funds, and they have been using technology to exclude more and more people over time. What about the poor in general? Are they getting enough to eat? Well, are they getting adequate nutrition? The food subsidy as a percentage of budgets has been dropping considerably, and at the same time, 12% of our population remains undernourished. The portion tracker, as of just 2 months ago, said that 31% of India's children below 5 years are stunted. Stunted, wasted children. These are our children whose future development is being thwarted, is being crippled by the lack of attention that we need, from this government to their nutrition needs. Anemia in adolescent girls went up from 54% to 59% between the last two national family health surveys. We've just seen, and we are experiencing in this city of Delhi, the tremendous air pollution, air quality, which is so bad that the measurement is off the scale, that we're not able to even measure how bad the air quality is. And we just needed a reminder from the former IMF chief economist, Harvard professor Geeta Gopinath, who pointed out that pollution poses a greater threat to India's economy than even tariffs. Well, the State of Global Air report says that 20 lakh Indians died prematurely because of polluted air in 2023 alone. This is a silent killer, and people are not agitated enough. Last session, we had asked for a debate in Parliament, but Parliament was adjourned before we could get to it. The Lancet, the leading medical journal, says that if you monetize the value of premature mortality, it is equivalent to 9.5% of India's GDP. Is the government paying attention to that? What did the minister say in Parliament? There is no direct connection between air pollution and health, and lung disease. What else is going on? Are we investing in our children, in their education? Well, enrollment in government schools and aided schools has dropped tremendously. If 25 crore students enroll, only less than 7 crore actually make it to secondary school. So where is the workforce? What are we doing to our children and their future? And what happens? There are lots of positions, sanctioned posts in government schools, education. It's not just government schools. They have slashed funding for higher education. They have not filled positions in central universities, in various All India Institutes of Medical Sciences. It's a tragedy. Student suicides have surged by 65% in the last decade under Modi Sarkar. What about women? Another of the priority areas for Modi Sarkar. 1 in 4 urban young women who want to work cannot find a job. They will say women's labor force participation is increasing because they're asking the question and people are responding. But that is increasing because more are working in the farm, because men are moving to the cities, and more are working in unpaid household labor. That is not meaningful formal employment. 68 lakh students exited schools in 24-25, out of which 32 lakhs were girls. And more than half of pregnant women in India are anemic. That has all kinds of implications for them, for their childbirth, and for their children's health. And elderly women, of course, face disproportionate vulnerability and lack of financial security. And finally, when we think about our elderly, when we think about our most vulnerable, our disabled, what is the situation? The National Social Assistance Program, which provides non-contributory income security, has been slashed. The budget has gone down from 10,000 50 crores in 25-26, from 0.6% to just 2% of the budget. So if this is how you take care of the elderly, remember, we keep talking about the demographic dividend and focus on our youth, but we are also a rapidly aging society, a silver society, and a lot of older people are there without any financial security. Greater than 40% of elderly are in the poorest 20% of the population quintile, and 18.7% have no source of income. What is the social security amount that the government has frozen? 200 rupees per month. 78% of the elderly population does not receive any form of support. So clearly, there is so much that we have to share. In spite of having the figures, being aware of what is going on, this government willfully chooses to cut corporate